Okay, hi, Kevin. So we're going to talk about Serach Bat Asher today. Some of you might be familiar with some of the stories about her. Some of you might not be. We'll see what we can find out today. So the first time we hear of her is when she appears in the Medrash, when the brothers sent her into Yaakov to tell Yaakov that Yosef was still alive. Serach is not mentioned in the actual pasuk in there. So why did the brothers send in Serach? Why choose her over someone else? So according to the Rokeah, Serach was spiritually greater than all other grandchildren. At least in that time period, he doesn't talk about it later. Specifically there, she was greater. According to Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, the brothers were worried that Yaakov was going to have a shock, and that he might die from such a shock if they went in and told him directly that Yosef was going to die, was alive. Funnily enough, Yaakov didn't actually believe the brothers when they did come in and tell him that Yosef was alive. Only when they started telling Yaakov the last halacha that he and Yosef had learned together did he believe them that Yosef was still alive. Back to Serach. So they sent Serach in, and it says that she took her kinor. They told her to take her kinor. Now, there's a focus of whether that's a harp or a different string instrument, but it's not a gigantic harp. It's something smaller that she could carry.
Here she is.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. So she took her harp in, and she played a tune. So we're talking about Serach Bat Asher. Okay, we just started. We talked about the first time that we really hear of her is in the Medrash, where the brother sent her into Yaakov to tell him that Yosef was still alive. That she's not mentioned in the Pesukim there. And that why did they send her in? Because according to the Rokeah, she was spiritually greater than all his other grandchildren. Okay? And that the kinor is a harp or another string instrument, machokas, little harp, something.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's certainly not this.
Right, exactly. Not gigantic, something that she could carry in. Most commentators do translate it as a harp, but it was a smaller harp. Okay. So she played a tune to go with the words that her uncle Yosef was still alive. Od Dod Yosef Chai. Now we don't actually but it actually does say in that she used the word uncle, that her uncle Yosef was still alive and that he was a ruler in Egypt. She made it a question mark, but she played this over and over for Yaakov as he was doubting. They said she went into his tent when he was doubting, presumably the Amidah, Shemona Esrei, and she played quietly over and over until it fully penetrated Yaakov's consciousness.
How many years after the beginning of the story?
So we've got 22 years, because we know that's.
Yeah, it was towards the end when he already knew.
They knew that Yosef was still alive. Why didn't Yosef? So why didn't Yosef contact his father once he became viceroy? Because the brothers had made a netter, a ban that no one was allowed to speak about what happened to Yosef. That meant Hashem, Yitzchak, none of the brothers, including Yosef, were allowed to break this netter until the brothers themselves broke it, until it was annulled.
That was to protect the son.
That's what happened. They made this vow.
There was also an idea that he wanted the brothers to do a tikkun, and he
Right.
couldn't get them to do it at tikkun if they knew that was him.
Could be.
Yeah, that was part of him reserved. Yosef revealed himself, but after he was revealed, then why?
So I'm saying once he became viceroy in Egypt, once he was no longer a slave or a prisoner, why didn't he contact his father? Because okay, so there's that idea that tikkun, but also because they had made this vow as many, there were a many people, they weren't allowed to break it without agreement upon all of them, and the brothers were only ones who were allowed to break it. Okay, so back to Sarah.
Benjamin was also part of the shtika.
Yes, Yitzchak was also, even though they weren't there, so it was Hashem, because it was the vow of many. It wasn't just a vow of person between person. It was.
How would the others know about it then?
Ruach Kodesh, whatever, they just weren't allowed to tell. Like Yitzchak knew that Yosef was still alive, but he wasn't allowed to tell Yaakov. there was a curse bracha. Like, yes, we all know there's Siyata Shema, there's a reason he wasn't told, but if you ever wondered, why didn't Yosef contact his father earlier, this is what that's funny read. Okay. So now the idea of finally penetrated Yaakov's mind, and Yaakov turns to Sarah and blesses her a long life, that she should live forever, for lifting his fears. Okay. Now, so she gets to live forever. That's the bracha. And Yaakov actually so enjoyed what she was playing to him and talking to him, and the way she did it, that he asked her not to stop. He said, just I'll give you whatever bracha you want, just don't stop. Like,
It's all from the same measures?
Yes. It's actually, there's a book, Serach Bat Asher, on the Torah, which is it's a medrash. So
we don't know how old she was.
no, it doesn't say. And actually never really talked about her age ever. Okay. So as Rhoda's bracha, she lived for many centuries until eventually she was taken to God alive. She was still alive during David's time. She's still alive during Rabbi Yochanan's time of the Gemara. And there were 9 people who were taken to God alive. You're gonna ask who these 9 people are. So according to the Serach Bat Asher, which is also a medrash, Serach Bat Asher. It's a safer Midrashim also. So the 9 who entered in their lifetimes, which means they were taken alive, are Chanach, son of Yared, Eliyahu, Navi, Mashiach, Eliezer, servant of Abraham, Hiram, king of Sor, which is Tyre today.
Really?
Yeah. Eved Melech the Cushi, servant of Tzidkiah.
Who?
Eved Melech the Cushi. He was a servant of Tzidkiah. Okay. Yavid, son of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Basia, daughter of Paro, Serach, daughter of Asher, and some also say Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Now, don't ask me why Mashiach is on this list, and I don't really know why most people are on this list. Yishai also, I've seen Yishai. This is just one list from one medrash. There are more than one list out there. Why are these people on this list? I don't really know why the people are on this list, including Mashiach. Mashiach hasn't even come yet, and apparently he was taken to God alive. So we know why Eliezer, Eliyahu, we know some of them, why they were taken, but most of them, I don't really know the stories. Maybe one day we'll have a share and I will do it further, but it was just, I wanted to tell you who was on the list, according to this specific medrash who mentioned that Serach was taken. Okay. So why was she given the bracha to live forever? Like, who really wants this bracha? I don't want this bracha. Please don't make me live forever. Like, the medrash explains it to be Mida Kedeng Mida. She returned Yaakov's spirits to him and allowed the Ruach to return to him. And therefore, she returned his spiritual life force to him, and therefore she merited eternal life. Okay. All right. So that's the first time we really hear of Serach Bat Asher mentioned. Next time it's actually in the Pesukim, when we read among the account of who went down to Mitzrayim. Okay, she's one of the 3 women mentioned specifically in that account. Okay, but this is the fun part. There's an idea that due to her extreme righteousness, she was counted twice. That she was the 70th person, that she completed the count. Not Yocheved, not Hashem, not Yaakov, but Serach. So, right, we know that it says all the members of Yaakov's household numbered 70, and we actually count the names that are listed at only 69. So the 70th is Yocheved, who was born at the gates of Egypt, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and that shows that Shekhinah went down to Esa with us, Yaakov himself, or Serach was counted twice. Okay. So according to the Eitz Yosef, the reason for being counted twice is because she was so righteous and she had a lot of wisdom. It doesn't really explain more than that. It just says that she was extremely righteous and had a lot of wisdom. The truth is, none of the Meforshim actually really talk about Serach. It's all Midrashim for the most part. And they're from random spots in different parts of the Tanakh, and it's just Medrash after Medrash. But Serach's fascinating. Like, she lived forever. She went into God in life. She lived for centuries. Like, She saw so much of our history,
She
so
appears in one place in comics.
twice actually
Where's the Asher?
in Bamidbar in the census.
Um,
We're gonna get to that in a few minutes. Okay. So here's the next fun bit. According to the Sefer Yashar, Serach was not Asher's daughter by birth. Okay, Serach's mother was Asher's second wife. How do we know this? First, the pasuk explicitly lists Asher's children like this: Yamina, Yishava, Yishve, and Gira, and Serach, their sister. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing the names. You can look in the Chumash for their exact pronunciations, but you get the point. He had
Just
4
four
sons.
starting with Yud.
Yeah.
And the sister.
Okay, which is very unusual phrasing. The Torah does not use extra words. Why not just say she was a daughter of Asher in the same way it says Dinah was Yaakov's daughter? Okay.
What does it say? Say it again.
It lists Serach as a sister of Asher's son. It doesn't say that she's his daughter. I don't have the exact pasuk. It's in the Chumash, but it literally like
His boys were his grandson.
these were Asher's sons,
Asher.
and his Serach their sister. And the question is, why does the Torah use this phrasing instead of saying, why not just saying that she's daughter of Asher, like it says Dinah, daughter of Yaakov, right? So according to the Ramban, who quotes Unclus, his Unclus is different than the Unclus we have today. There's a variation to it.
Okay.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that were censored and then.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So it's on Midrash in Bamidbar, on the pasuk in Bamidbar, that counts Serach among the counts of Bnei Israel. Serach Bat Asher means the daughter of Asher's wife. Serach is the daughter of Asher's wife.
That would mean what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The Medrash Sefer Yashar on the Torah brings the following: Asher went and took Adun, the daughter of a son of Hadar, son of Yishmael, as a wife.
What's her name?
Is the great granddaughter of Ishmael?
Yes.
His wife.
His
okay.
first wife.
His first wife.
Yes. Remember, this is a Medrash, so we're not going to see it quoted in Tanakh itself.
Say it again. What's her name?
A Pa'alel.
Okay.
Okay.
And who was? Say it again. Who's the
Son of Hadar, son of Yishmael.
daughter?
Her name was Adun, the daughter of Pa'alel, son of Hadar, son of Yishmael. Okay.
Adun was the female's name, and
Yes.
then previous to 4 generations.
It was two generations. Daughter of Pa'al, son of Hadar, son of Yishmael. She was great granddaughter of Yishmael. Okay. But Yishmael has plenty of merits. Like, they also believe in the Kurdish Baruch Hu, like he was raised in Yaakov's in Avram's house. So yes.
So we don't know right now.
All right. So
Okay.
this is from one of his wives. Okay. And he brought her to Canaan where they were living. And then the wife of Asher died in those days without children. Okay, that's the story of his first wife that he took. She died childless, no children. So it was after the death of Adun, and Asher went to the other side of the river, which we assume meant the Yarden, but it just says the other side of the river. So, and took Chadura, the daughter of Avmiel, son of Eber, son of Shem, as a wife. Did you follow that?
Say it again.
He took Chadura, the daughter of Avmiel, son of Eber, son of Shem, to great granddaughter of Shem. So like a great niece of Tamar, let's say. Remember we said Tamar was Shem's daughter, so they're related. And much more the right generation this time. Okay. Chadura, the girl, was beautiful and intelligent, and Machiel, son of Iliam, son of Shem, took her to be his wife. Basically, her uncle took her to be his wife. Okay? So Chadura bore from Machiel a daughter, and her name was Serach.
And then he died,
And Machiel afterwards died. And Chadura went and returned to the house of her father. And it was after the death of the wife of Asher, and he went into Chadura as a wife and brought her to the land of Canaan. Serach, her daughter, also came with her, and she was 3 years old. And the girl grew up in the house of Yaakov. Okay, so Serach, the girl, was beautiful and went in the ways of the children of Yaakov and Kedusha. She did not lack for anything, and Hashem gave her Chachma and Seichel. Chadorah, the wife of Asher, bore for him Imna, Yishve, and Birya, 4 sons. Okay, so we see that they both had 2 marriages, and this was from their second marriage that they had 4 sons together, and Serach was from her first marriage, Shemaiah. But in any case, Serach obviously had plenty of lineage, plenty of yichus coming from the house of Shem on both sides, so she's good to go. I did find it interesting that they were so willing to raise Sarah, unlike Osnas, but very different scenarios. So we see from here that the reason she's called right by the daughter of Asher and not daughter of Malkiel or someone else is because Asher raised her to be like his own. Okay, so back to Mitzrayim. Yaakov's dying. He gives over the formula of what the Redeemer is going to say, the sign to his sons. Specifically to Yosef. Yosef either then told his brothers or he told Sarah. I saw 2 different Midrashim. One said that he told Sarah
What did he tell him?
The
the simanim of what the Redeemer was supposed to say, do when came time to take them out of Mitzrayim.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So either Yosef told his brothers, and Asher told Sarah, or Yosef told Sarah. I saw it written both ways, so however it came about, she was told. I guess this is why she lived forever. She needs to be the one to pass on this information. Okay. And the words were pakod bekadati. Pakod bekadati, everyone. That's the formula. Those specific words needed to be said in order for the Jews to know that this was the true Redeemer. Okay, so in Mitzrayim, the people came to Sarah when they knew it was, the elder among them and knew what was supposed to be known, and said the Redeemer has come and he has all these signs, and they started telling her whatever they were telling her, what he could do with his staff and, what he told them. And Sarah said, those signs are meaningless. And they said, but Moshe said Hashem has remembered us. Pakod bekadati. And Sarah said, he is the Redeemer. It was only with those words that Moshe became the Redeemer in the eyes of Bnei Israel. If he hadn't said those words, they wouldn't have accepted him because it wasn't the correct formula. Okay, so Sarah was the only person still alive from Yosef's generation. So when it came time to leave Mitzrayim, she was able to lead Moshe directly to where Yosef's coffin was buried in the Nile. Yosef was buried by the Egyptians in a metal coffin and sunk into the Nile. But she knew exactly where. She came to Moshe and said, this is where. And Moshe did his stuff and brought up the coffin. And he left Egypt with the coffin of Yosef. This big heavy metal coffin, bones of Yosef. Okay. So then we're back to Midbinbar. She's mentioned in Parshas Pinchas, in the sentence that was taken there after incident with Zimri and Cosby, and they wanted to know how many Jews were still alive, from which tribes, etc. I didn't actually go into the details of the sentence because that wasn't the story, but Serach is mentioned there again in the sentence among children of Asher. According to Rashi, there she's mentioned by name because she was Yaakov's only living granddaughter.
Did she get married?
Not as far as I'm aware. It never said that she ever married. Nothing. All right. So then we see the Rambam is the Rambam I quoted earlier. Ramban is based on the Onkelos here in Parshas Pinchas. Okay, and he's just because she was Asher's stepdaughter and how to read the Pesukim. Okay, and because her mother was the sole heir of her father, that like Safwan's daughters who are mentioned in the next parak, Sarah too received her own portion in the land. Should we follow that?
She was the only surviving child of
Her mother, I guess, didn't have any brothers, didn't have any sisters,
She was supposed to inherit.
so she was supposed to inherit from her father.
her brothers were not alive.
This goes back to her mother,
Okay.
not to Sarah, but to on her mother's side.
So the inheritance that she received was actually from mother.
Even though her mother was from the house of Shem. So technically, why is she getting an inheritance? But Shem was the forerunner of the Jewish people. If we actually look at how it plays out, so she gets inheritance in the land, according to this idea here on this parsha. And the reason why they talk about it here is because it is this census lists the names of the people who will be participating in the division of Eretz Yisrael later on. Therefore, she should be mentioned here as well.
Also descendants of these 4 brothers, half brothers, whatever, right?
Yeah, there was descendants of Asher had plenty of descendants, so
And she also had her portion.
she had her own portion from her mother's side.
Wow.
Okay. So like we said earlier, Serach, so that's the end of Tanakh, like the 5 books of Chumash. That's the end of Serach's story, right? So Serach was still alive when David and Melech became king, right? She's still alive. She's living in this town called Abel Beth Mecca. Abel Beth Mecca.
Oh,
Right. And Yoav, David's general, comes to the town. There is a man there who is Chayav Misa, and he's just going to kill the whole town. And she comes out to him and says, "What do you think you're doing? You're meant to be a father. That is what your name means. What do you think you're doing? This is not the Yoav, right?" So, and she basically yells at him. She rebukes him, and she says, "Who are you? Like, old lady, what do you want from me? Like, who are you?" And she says to him that she was Shlomei Amuni, meaning both I am the one who completed the count,
and what,
Oh, man, wow.
like Monet, like in a taxi, okay, in the count, when we went down to Egypt, and I am the one who handed over a faithful one. Never mind, like she was still faithful, that she still carried on the tradition of her father. She passed it on. She passed on the secrets. She knew who Moshe was, etc. Okay, and she showed Moshe where Yosef was buried, so it relates back to those ideas. So, like we said, Yosef was after a specific person in this town, because this person was Chaim Misa for rebelling against David and Melech. This person was Sheva ben Birchi.
Rebellion against David and Melech?
It doesn't get it. I could have gone to Shmuel Beis and looked at the specifics, but I
what's
didn't.
the name? Sheva?
Sheva ben Birchi.
Okay.
Okay. So he wanted to kill the entire town for harboring him, but Serach said, "No, this is not how we go about doing this. I will get him for you." So she went back to the townspeople and says, "Do you know who David and Melech is? Nations have not survived this man. What do you think you're doing?" I said, "Well, what does he want?" And she says, "He wants 1,000 men." Okay, this is where she shows her wisdom. So they're all a little bit like 1,000 men. She says each household will give according to their numbers. Once they agreed, she said, "Let me see if I can get him to be more reasonable."
He wants 1,000 men to kill them?
1,000 men. She doesn't
say what the,
She doesn't say why. She says he wants 1,000 men. Maybe for his army, whatever. There's just
okay, it's
doesn't-
not clear.
not clear. It doesn't specify exactly what 1,000 men would be for. Maybe to kill them. Doesn't say. But if it was to kill them, the townspeople wouldn't really have been enough to give them up. But that's besides the point.
I didn't get them.
If it was to kill them, they wouldn't really have been allowed to give them up. You can't give up people to save an entire town. Okay. So then once they agreed to the 1,000, she said, "Let me see if I can get him to be more reasonable." And she plans to go back and negotiate with Yoav. Yoav doesn't really care. He's not really interested in the town. But she knows that the only way to get the townspeople to give up this person is to go through this ploy. She comes back and says he wants 500. And they agree. And then she gets, "Let me see if I can keep getting him to go down 100," and so on and so forth, until she finally says he wants 1 man. And he does not even live in our town. He's a visitor. Okay, and I say, "Well, who is he?" And she tells him, "Sheva ben Birchi." So the townspeople cut off Sheva ben Birchi's head. They killed him. He was Chaim Misa. They killed him. This way she saved the whole town and showed her wisdom and how she went about it. It's all in Shmuel Beis, Parak 20 in the Pesukim there.
Wow. We're not gonna write.
Um,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and she went about it in a way that the townspeople would be okay with it.
Like they volunteered it, but so far she.
Yeah, first she said 1,000, then she said 500, and slowly went down and down until she got to one person that they were really interested in and said, "This is the person. Like, why are you harboring him? What?"
He was just.
He was visiting. He was, he and his wife had come to the town and
Okay.
were spending time there. Maybe they were living there for a month or whatever. But it says that he wasn't a member of the town. Yeah,
That was after one of the rebellions against them.
yeah. It doesn't say specifically why he was. I'm sure it doesn't specifically, but the Medrash doesn't bring why he was Chaya Misa. I just assume that he was rebelling against the king, and that's why they wanted to kill him. Okay, so this is the next part is actually from Naphtali Pafi and my husband. My husband mentioned to Naphtali that I wanted to give a share on Serach. And the only thing that Naphtali had to say was that the way he remembers Serach is the Rosh Tevos: Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Chana. The Resh is used twice, but it's our mothers who were specifically mentioned, not Leah, but there's no Lamed, but
Mhm.
so I just thought that was a very cute thing. Okay, so now we get to the Gemara. So it's not actually in the Gemara. It's a medrash on the Gemara. It's in the Siktei de Rav Kahana, that this story is brought. Rabbi Yochanan is trying to describe what the Yom Tov looked like when it's split between the tribes.
What?
What the Yom Tov looked like, right? It was split into 12 different areas and what it looked like.
To his students, he's trying to explain. it.
Yes.
Okay.
And he says it looked like a lattice work. And she says, no, it did not. I was there. Excuse me. It did not look like lattice work. It looked like glass.
Good.
Glass. That's all it says.
What's lattice work?
Lattice work is like,
this,
It's metal.
like
No.
this,
it's like
Oh, like
woven.
this?
Yeah.
Ah,
no,
okay.
it's-
Bigger,
it's
but
complete, you could see what was going on the other side.
it's like they have lattice fences, like with diamonds, triangles in between each one.
Okay.
Okay. So that's what Rabbi Yochanan had in his mind that it looked like. And she said, excuse me, it did not. I was there. It looked like glass.
Okay.
Like you might think you're all that, but no, I was there and I know what it looked like.
Wow.
Okay. So
This is in a medrash.
it's de Rav Kahana. Okay, so that was the last time Serach was mentioned.
It's like, can you say it again? Steve?
Pesik de Rav Kahana.
Sikta.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You can find most of these portion in the purple book, Encyclopedia of People in Tanakh, whatever it's called. Okay. It's Hebrew English, but okay. So basically, this is all there was on Sarah. Unfortunately, really don't talk about her except for that little bit in Rashi and Rambam and Bamidbar. Like, but she's alive for generations, for centuries. Like, she lived throughout Jewish history. She saw it unfolding, and she's just not an entity.
No, but it's a lot compared to, how much we get about Ruth? We just know that she was still there.
We have a
when
whole
Shlomo
book on
Melech-
Ruth.
When Shlomo Melech became,
But she has a whole book.
yeah, okay, but what, during all these other generations,
Right.
like you said, she said by Shlomo Melech.
Yeah. So, it was very hard to remember this year, but really, she's a fascinating person. Like, she lived for centuries, and she wasn't even Yaakov's actual granddaughter by birth. Like,
So many of these things, obviously, it's just boom, 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 and I guess, we have this generation of, shidduchim, yeah, somebody in the office, family don't, boys getting older. Family is like, this, that, that. And you see, in Aram Kol, how, it's, the things are ruchani rather than gash. Like she was the ruchniest daughter, granddaughter, great-great-granddaughter. That's good enough for us, because she
Right.
was, and many other
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not, we focus too much on Eucharist and not enough on the Midos. And
Not even, not, you know, biological as
Right.
opposed to another story I was saying that a girl who was getting older, and she got a whole bunch of string of sisters after her, and like 25 maybe, and the Rosh Hashanah goes, father goes to Rosh Hashanah, the Rosh Hashanah says, well, you don't want to hear from this Fritz because his parents are Chiloni, and he's been Yeshua here for 10 years, and he has no family. Oh, okay. We started talking with him. Wow, he was so excited. She went out with him. Wow, you know, and they're married. You know, but it's like you have to give up on all kinds of
Yes.
imaginary things to get to real life.
Right,
100%.
right.
Anyway, so I remember the basic story of her when I was learning Chumash as a child, that she went in and, played for Yaakov on her, but really I didn't know there was so much more to her story. And since we're going through and went into that, it seemed only fair, especially since she comes from this week's parsha, that we learn about Serach, what there is. So it's really all these midrashim. To me, her life is actually a little sad. Like, she lived for generations and she saw everyone she knew and loved die. She apparently did not get married. She didn't have children of her own. If she did, they're not mentioned in any of the midrashim. Does that mean she didn't? I assumed it didn't. I mean,
Whatever we don't need to know, they don't tell us.
Right.
So it's not, yeah,
but like I said, she played a huge part in her history. She saw it unfold. She knew the formula of who
Very
was going to
interesting.
take us out of Egypt. She knew where Yosef was buried. She knew how to save an entire town of people. Like, she was extremely righteous in why they say she was righteous, most righteous of all Yaakov's grandchildren. Like, her story was fascinating.
she helped Jewish history.
Yes.
Stay on course.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
And that also is important to us because it's like this continuity is nobody could fake anything.
Yeah.
Like we started earlier.
Exactly. It's
And that's
like,
what we do learn. The kids in God will tell you like
Yeah.
Right.
It's in the pictures. It's in the
Yeah.
but we learned it from Sarah. Because
Yeah.
Sarah hadn't
And she
spoken
was
up.
there.
She was there. She hadn't spoken up. So we'd be learning that it was like honest work.
Why was she who knows?
Yeah, I don't know why she was sitting there, but she was sitting there and apparently no one cared because, she was there.
Or she heard through the window.
Or
So,
heard from the people that
Yeah.
they heard off. We talked about what they learned in Shiva that day.
Yeah.
It was like,
I heard a sheer once, it's not about her, but they said that there are psukim in the Torah. You said pakod pakadati is one of them. All the letters of the Hebrew alphabet that has a Sophie letter as well, like the pei, mem, nun, all those letters have a pasuk where it's like pakod pakadati, but it repeats itself, and they're all kashur, they're all connected with the Geulah.
very cool.
Yeah. Maybe I took notes of it somewhere in the house. That was really amazing.
wow, like Kaf and Kapsufi.
All those, every one of them, and Tzaddik and whatever, they all have a pasuk where it's repeated
Very
like Pakod Pakadati, and they're all connected to the Geulah.
Anyways, so I just have a little bit more to share with you if you are interested. So the next bit is on Osna.
Is what?
On Osna. Osna is really kind of last week's parsha, this week's parsha, but she's there, and there isn't also a whole lot on her, so she
She
just,
did a good job.
this is what I'm gonna say. So Osna, so there's a Makokas, she was daughter of Dinah or not, but most later people learn that she was the daughter of Dinah from Shechem. Okay, so I've read two different ideas. One that as a toddler she wandered off and she had this like necklace that was a head plate around her forehead, and she wandered off and she was picked up by the Egyptians or whoever and brought down to Egypt, and that's how she ended up in Potiphar's house. The other idea is that she was given away as a baby because the brothers were embarrassed, not okay with her being raised in Yaakov's household. Even though obviously she was Dinah's daughter, they felt it was an embarrassment and not something that Yaakov should be okay with. And he seemingly acquiesced. Obviously with Alma Shemar, she should have been in Egypt, but okay. So she was raised in the house of Potiphar, and she was basically an Egyptian princess. Okay, she wasn't Paro's daughter, but she was still high up there in the hierarchy of noble.
How did she know what this meant? What she had in her?
I don't know that she did. It doesn't actually specifically mentioned if
It
she
didn't,
knew.
it didn't say something? What
It did say
It-
something, it did, it said she was from the house of
House of
Yaakov.
Yaakov.
I don't know
No,
if
but
she
isn't
knew
it
what it
only
meant.
something
She
in front of
threw
the,
it into
Yosef.
Yosef's carriage as he was doing his victory
a
ride through
parade
the
in the
city.
street.
Did know something like
Did she, or she was just throwing?
Everybody was throwing
Everyone
jewelry.
was throwing
All the
jewelry in.
women were throwing jewelry and stuff.
So I'm not
This-
sure if she threw the whole thing in or if it was two parts and she kept half of it so he would be able to figure out who she was. I'm a little unclear on that, but all the women were throwing things at Yosef. He was the victor. He was the viceroy. Like he was the victor. He was on a victory ride throughout the city, throughout the country, in his carriage. All right.
It was a good catch and you.
Yeah. Okay. So it said that she was from the house of Yaakov, and this is how Yosef knew that he could marry. But he had to find her first.
It's a finder.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like I remember learning that it was like a two-part thing, and she threw half of it in, you know. So anyway, so Yosef figured out who the necklace belonged to, and he knew that she was from the house of Yaakov, and therefore he could marry her. Now, Othniel is given a lot of credit, as Robert Smanger mentioned, because of Menashe and Ephraim. And because if you read the article, it literally says in the bottom that she's given all this credit because really she was a princess and Yosef had been a slave and he was a prisoner. And only now is he being risen up to this, level. And he's not even Egyptian. Like he's from land of the Hebrews, he's not even one of them. So really she should have, raised them in the way of the Egyptians. But instead she acquiesced to Yosef's ways. She saw the beauty in it, and she raised her boys in the house of Kedusha in the way of Yosef and Yaakov. That's why we bless her sons to be like Menashe and Ephraim and Menashe. So because they grew up in exile, and this is who we are, and we need that string to carry on to be Jews. But they really give her a lot of credit for this because really most people in her position would not A, have married Yosef, and B, would not have raised her children in Yosef's manner, because she was from a higher status than him technically. In that world there, right, a whole culture, from that world that she was in, she was really she was from a higher level than him, so. And that's what I have on Othniel. Whether or not she was daughter of Clem and Dinah depends which medrash you read and who you want to hold by. There are some who say she was, some who say she wasn't, some say that Dinah had a son, Shaul, and it's a lot of different ideas. But
anyways, before the giving of the Torah, we had a lot of people coming in from the side.
Yes.
Nobody was Jewish yet.
right. So speaking of people coming in from the side, so if you're interested, the Serach Bat Asher actually brings down who each of the brothers married.
Okay.
I brought it. I had
Yeah,
my
you
husband
have it?
translate it and give it to me. He's like, "This is boring." I'm like, "They're gonna find it fast." He did not believe me. He's like, "This is boring. It's me."
Let's hear.
He's like thinking like, "I'm like, we're not testing them on this. This is just well."
Such a man.
Anyways, so he goes through all the tribes. So we'll start with Reuben. Reuben went to Timnah, same place that Yehuda went. I married our Aliroam, daughter of Azi, the Canaanite. And Aliroam, the wife of Reuben, gave birth to Chana, Palu, and Chizron,
She married a Canaanite.
and Carmi, 4 sons. It's
Why did they
from
have all these-
Timnah. From Timnah, whether she was, I know, you're wondering why,
Discussion about Yehuda was
Yes.
whether Knani means a
A merchant.
merchant.
or something else, or from one of the nations surrounding Canaan, who wasn't actually Canaan, but they lived in Canaan.
Okay.
And they don't go into details, it
Okay.
just,
Who else married Timnah? Oh, no, but who married Timnah?
no one married Timnah, they went to
No, but
Timnah.
somebody married.
Yeah,
Timnah.
Ishmael,
Ishmael married Timnah. Okay.
or Asaph, I think it was Asaph married Timnah, no?
No, one of them.
Could be.
I think it was Asaph.
I'm not sure.
But, okay,
I think
so
it's Ishmael, but it's okay.
it's
Whatever.
one of the two, either
Yeah.
I'm getting confused, Ishmael married,
There was two to Ishmael, then he went and added another new because.
Can.
yeah,
So I don't think maybe the later, yes,
Asaph.
Okay.
geographically makes sense. but I
Yeah,
don't know.
so anyways, one of them married him. So, and Shimon, his brother, took Dinah, his sister, to be his wife, and she bore for him Yemuel, Yamin, Ohad, Yachon, and Sachar, 5 sons. Afterwards, Shimon went to Bona the Canaanist, and she is the Bona that he had captured from the city of Shechem. Bona was put before Dinah, and she served her, and she gave birth to Shaul.
So there was like to Shimon, there was what do you call it? What do they call it?
Yafastar,
No, the second wife.
Whatever.
What-
your second wife,
No, that, she was at the level of the.
Like a maid servant.
maid servant, you mean? Like,
Yeah, what do they call that? Concubine. or something.
concubine, you want the English word? Yeah, she was like a concubine, and she gave birth to Shaul the Canaanite. Remember, we spoke a little bit about this a couple weeks ago when we were, that there was Shaul the Canaanite in the list of people, and was he
A
Dinah's
merchant.
daughter or Dinah's son, or who is this Shaul, son of Canaanite?
You know, but,
Okay, so, and now we get to Judah. Judah went this time to Adullam and turned,
Wait a second, after Shimon is Levi.
Yeah.
but they bring Yehuda next. I'm not sure
Okay.
why.
Okay. Judah.
Went this time to Adullam and turned to Adullamite man, and his name was Chira. And Yehuda saw the daughter of a Canaanite man. Her name was Elis, the daughter of Shua. And he married her, and Elis bore for Yehuda, Onan, and Shelah, 3 sons. Okay, now we get to Levi. Levi and Issachar went to the eastern land, and they took as wives the daughters of Yoav, son of Yitan, son of Aver. Yobab, son of Yitan, had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Adina. The name of the younger was Arida. And Levi took Adina, and Issachar took Arida, and they brought them to the land of Canaan to their father's house. And Adina bore for Levi, Gershon, Kahas, Merari, 3 sons.
Adina, like we were.
Adina.
Yeah.
Adina.
Adina,
Yes, because.
But she's from Shem. That's what you said.
and
These
this is
two.
this is from the eastern land,
But.
son of
okay.
Aver. They were,
Aver,
they were
Sika, Lord,
granddaughters of
Okay.
Aver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, grandson.
They were granddaughters of Aver. So then there's a weird name change here, and the Sefer calls Ariza instead of
Arida.
Arida. It could be just a mistake. We don't know. 'Cause,
Okay.
Bore for Yisachar, Tola, Poa, Yov, and Shamron, 4 sons. Okay, we get the names of their children from Tanakh. It's all
So
listed in.
Levi and Issachar became brothers-in-law as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And Dan went to Moab, took Apalus, daughter of Chamron, the Moabite, to be his wife. Took Apalus, the daughter of Chamron, the Moabite, to be his wife. And he brought her to Canaan. And Apalus was barren for many years. And God remembered Apalus, wife of Dan afterwards, and she bore a son, and she called his name Hushim.
Wait, now we get to God now?
No, this is Dan.
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 Dan went to Moab.
No, he went to Moab. He took this wife, Apollos. She was barren for many years. God eventually remembered her. She gave birth to a son named Hushim. Hushbandan,
Chin.
right? So, God and Naphtali went to Chara.
Who?
God and Naphtali went to Chara.
Went where?
To Chara.
Okay.
Haran?
It just says, my husband wrote Chara. It could be
Haran.
meant Haran. I don't know, but
No,
I don't know. And they took from there the daughters of Amram, son of Oth, son of Nachor, for wives. And these are the names of the daughters of Amram. The elder,
Nachor, maybe this.
yeah, in Haran. And these are the names of the daughters of Amram. The elder was Marimath, and God took Uzzis. And they brought them to the land of Canaan, to the house of their father. So it seems like Naphtali took Mamres, and God took Uzzis. It sounds like it. Yeah. So it's the daughters of the Amorim, and they took,
were sons of who? They were sons of Leah? They were sons
God
of-
and Naphtali?
No.
No, they weren't sons of Leah. They were sons of Zilpah, I think.
So they were full brothers of Israel. They took two sisters.
I believe so, yeah.
Mm.
Okay. They brought them to the land of Canaan, to the house of their father. Mamres bore for Naphtali, Yichatzkel and Goni, Yetzer and Shalem, 4 sons. Uzzis bore for Gad, Saphon, Chagi, Shuni, Etzon, Eri, Ari, Di, and Areli, 7 sons.
By Naphtali there were 7.
No, by God, there were 7
By
sons.
God.
Naphtali had 4.
Mhm. Well,
Okay. And Zebulun went to Midian and took Marusha, daughter of Moler, son of Abida, son of Midian, as a wife, and brought her to the land of Canaan. And Moshe bore for Zebulun, Serach, Elion.
It's the names of the children.
Yeah, she bore for Zebulun, Serach, Elion, Yechielel, 3 sons. Okay, I'm probably massacring these
I
names.
don't get it. They all had twin sisters to marry,
Yeah,
and they all went and married.
this is one medrash. It's a medrash. I can't tell you exactly what happened. I wasn't alive. You'd have to find Seraph and ask her.
Twin citizens, so they make.
Yeah, yes, that is the more common explanation. This is just one medrash. I thought you would all find it very
It is
interesting because
interesting. I
you know
would've
we
happy.
always wonder who did they actually marry? Well,
Right,
this
right.
is one explanation. And Yaakov sent to Aram, the son of Sova, the son of Terah, and he took Michael, the daughter of Aram, for Benjamin, his son. She went to the land of Canaan, the house of Yaakov, and Benjamin was 10 years old. Yaakov found a wife at 10 when he married Michael, the daughter of Aram, and Michael bore Benjamin, Bala, Becher, Eshbel, Gera, and Eman, 5 sons from his first wife. Afterwards, Benjamin, who was now 18, went and took Erebus, the daughter of Zamran, the son of Abram, on top of his wife to be his wife, and he was 18 years old. Erebus bore for Benjamin, Achiv, Rosh, Morphim, Chophim, and Erod, 5 sons. So we assume that when they said he had 10 sons. So when we say the son of Abram, we're assuming they mean from Kasi, obviously from when after Sarah died and he took another wife again. So that was his second wife.
That's great. Wow. Very interesting. You're gonna remember all that.
I don't
Hello, yeah,
know.
you're an expert of